All right, I'm gonna try and get through this. Bear with me, people. So for those of you who don't know, I'm Demetrius, Nancy's oldest grandson, only grandson, oldest. I'm sorry, I'm losing it here.
You got this, babe.
Nancy Toole DeLay. That name means something to every single one of us in this room. And today she's what brings us together. During her life, she was a daughter, a sister, a friend, a cousin, a wife, a mother, a grandmother, and a great-grandmother. To me, she was simply grandma. And I can't help but smile when I say that word. I'm sure just uttering that word lowers my blood pressure. In my life, Grandma was an integral part of my childhood, and because of that, an integral part of the man I've become today. Some of my oldest memories go back to the early 80s on Williams Drive in Alexandria. My Aunt Debbie and Uncle Bobby also lived in the house with my grandparents. And one fall morning in 1984, Grandma, Granddaddy, Mom, and I waited outside with excitement and a bit of nerves, I'm sure, for my first day of kindergarten. And those of you who know this story are probably already smiling or laughing. There we all stood together under the big tree in the front yard. I'm sure I was somewhat excited. That was until the bus came. It pulled up and those big doors opened and I took off in the opposite direction. It was like I was in the NFL Combine running my 40-yard dash trying to impress the Washington Redskins. Go Ravens. Straight to the backyard I went and hid under the picnic table. They all came to try and coax me out, but I wouldn't budge. In fact, I had grabbed this big tree branch that had fallen to the ground and used it to keep them at bay. It was like I was a lion tamer holding a stool. And eventually, I think it was actually Grandma, went out and waved the school bus on to go without me. At that point, Grandma knew I was going to be a handful. But my memories weren't all crazy like that. Grandma and I would spend what felt like hours sitting on the front stoop playing I Spy with My Little Eye. That was one of our favorite games to play, and to this day I can still see it so vividly in my mind's eye. My first memories of Christmas come from that house as well. Finding my very first record player and albums under the tree are especially still fresh in my mind. By the time I was in first grade, Grandma and Granddaddy, along with my Uncle Bobby, moved right next door to my mom and I in the apartments at Beacon Hill. This was literally just over a mile away from the Williams Drive house. There I spent every morning before school and every afternoon after school with my grandparents. I even remember being homesick with Grandma and Granddaddy when the Challenger space shuttle exploded in 1986. We watched the whole thing live on TV. Grandma never drove a car or had a driver's license. We would walk together from the apartments to Beacon Mall to go shopping at Giant. My Uncle Bobby would eventually work at that same store. Grandma and I would walk and talk to and from the store, and on the way back I'd help her pull the grocery cart that we always had with us. And if I was good, Grandma would give me a quarter to get a toy out of the gumball machine by the red cash registers. Grandma and Granddaddy loved the beach, the water, and to swim. And the apartments had a community pool. Grandma would often take me there during long hot summers to cool off. My cousin Elizabeth would sometimes join me as well. On one infamous afternoon, I decided to jump in the deeper end of the pool. Now, this wasn't the 9-foot end, thankfully, where the diving board was, but it was more like the 5-foot deep area. I knew I messed up as soon as I hit the bottom. The water was over my head. I did my best to kick back up off the bottom. It was like slow motion as I scanned the pool deck for Grandma. She was there sitting at a table under an umbrella. I waved my hands in the air in a panic. Does she see me? She waves back. Yes, she sees me. Help is on the way. Only it wasn't. Grandma just sat there with a big smile on her face, waving back at her drowning grandson. I think it wasn't until the lifeguard came running over to help me that Grandma realized just what was happening. Thankfully, I'd bounced myself back to the side of the pool enough that I could now grab onto the ladder and climb back out. Poor Grandma, she felt terrible after that. And I made sure that she never forgot it either. I remind her of it frequently. And but it was scary at the time, yes, but I just considered it another fond memory of Grandma and I from my childhood. After the apartments, we had an opportunity to live together under the same roof. We moved just under 2 miles away to a single-family house on Whetstone Road. I lived there with my mom, Uncle Bobby, Grandma, and Granddaddy until I graduated from elementary school and the 6th grade at the age of 12. It was at this time in my life that I feel I really grew to understand just how special Grandma was. Sorry, I lost my place. Understand just how special Grandma was and just how much she deserved our love and appreciation. The house we lived in was kept immaculate. Grandma was always on top of dusting, vacuuming, dishes, laundry, everything. There was never a thing out of place in that house, and I know that was a source of pride for her. Just like keeping the grass mowed and looking good was something Granddaddy enjoyed. Every night was a home-cooked meal prepared by Grandma, and it was always ready at 5 o'clock on the dot. Grandma always took time out for herself. Every day, she never missed her stories. Soap operas. Young and the Restless, As the World Turns, Guiding Light were her favorites. In fact, I can still hear the theme music in my head and remember characters like Victor Newman and Cricket Montgomery. I'm told as a toddler I would even dance to that music when it came on. Maybe I missed my calling. Come Christmas time, Grandma practically had a cookie factory going in the kitchen. The amount of flavors and varieties that she would make was unreal. My personal favorite was her no-bake cookies. And please grab some. It was my first attempt at making them as a tribute to Grandma, and I think they turned out pretty good. She helped me, no doubt. I'm a sucker for chocolate and peanut butter. They were like heaven in a bite. Snickerdoodles were also a family favorite. Speaking of the kitchen, while we lived together and I was attending Groveton Elementary, Grandma worked in the cafeteria. Every day I got to say hi to her and feel special that my Grandma worked at my school. To this day, I can just see her in that dark blue and green uniform that they would wear. Around this time period, I also have memories of Grandma and Granddaddy's 40th wedding anniversary in 1989, as well as countless family reunions. Grandma and Uncle Tooley were always the stars of the talent show. Everyone awaited their rendition of Little Sailor Boy. And if you saw some of the pictures in the slideshow with Grandma up in the air being carried, that was the finale to that song. That was so special to everybody in the family. And in my head, I can still see her jumping into Tooley's arms at the end of the song. When I began middle school, it was the first time I had lived away from my grandparents. Granted, our move to Dale City was only about 16 miles south where Grandma and Granddaddy were now living. As a 12-year-old with a lack of reference for real travel time and distance, that may as well have been 160 miles. Looking back at my life, I've always cherished the time I was able to be so close with my Grandma and Granddaddy. I was never left alone as a child. I was never a latchkey kid. Every morning before school, every afternoon after school was spent with my grandparents. Every birthday, every holiday, vacations, you name it. They were always there. They were always part of my life, part of my world. At 23 years old, I married the love of my life, Nikki Evans.
I'm trying to say something.
She's my best friend, my soulmate, and I couldn't imagine life without her. I'm happy to say that she had a great relationship with my grandma and loved her dearly, as if she were her own grandmother. She had just as much love for my granddaddy as well. Grandma always had nothing but love and wonderful things to say about our relationship, the kind of woman I married and the son that we're raising. I love you, buddy.
Love you too.
To me, there's no bigger compliment in the world. My grandparents were married for 64 years. What an accomplishment, what a blessing. Nikki and I have always looked at them as our own inspiration for longevity and love. I hope and pray that we can live up to the example they set for us. After my granddaddy passed in 2014, I stood up here, much like I'm doing today, and poured my heart out as my way of honoring a man who meant so much to me and made such a difference in my life. After the celebration, I gave my grandma the eulogy I had written and read from. For years after, she would go on to tell me how much she cherished those pieces of paper and would read it to herself often. How touching, how sweet. Grandma, hearing that from you meant the world to me. And since the day I was born, my granddaddy had health problems. It was always scary for me. I was young and never knew just how he could deal with those things so calmly and so easily. But with age comes wisdom, and I know without a doubt it was because of the wife my grandmother was. She was the most selfless woman that I have ever known. She dedicated her life to being there and taking care of my granddaddy. When you have a strong woman who loves you, you can count on, you can face anything. Grandma truly demonstrated and lived that. And lived what, for better or worse, in sickness and in health, truly means. She was the embodiment of that. Towards the end of my grandma's journey here on earth, I was able to give back just a little bit. To say thank you for all that you had done. Following a hospital stay, Grandma found herself in a rehab facility in Woodbridge. That place was hell on earth, and that's putting it nicely. After just one visit there, Nikki and I discussed bringing her home to live with us. I give my wife all the credit on this one. It was a no-brainer for me, but this is my family, and our home is just as much her home as it is mine. I know this was a big ask, but like my grandmother, she too is a selfless, caring, and compassionate woman, and totally agreed that Grandma needed to come live with us. My Aunt Debbie moved in as well, so that she could provide most of Grandma's daily care. My mom, who also lives with us, thankfully was there to help Debbie more and more towards the end. We truly had a full house. And it was a blessing to be surrounded by so many people you love. Sadly, Grandma would only end up living with us from mid-November to the beginning of April. It seemed like such a short time, but I feel like we fit a lot of life and love in that window of less than 5 months. We ate together, we played games together, we laughed together, we cried together, we watched movies together. Looking back, I think movie nights were my favorite. Grandma loved horror, suspense, and thrillers. She would sit on our reclining couch with our dog Snow laying right beside her and would just pet her the whole time while being glued to the TV. I would catch myself looking over at her several times during the movie to see if she was still awake. It would put the biggest smile on my face, seeing her on the edge of her seat watching the movie with intensity whilst nonstop petting Snow. And her and Snow were so tight. They loved each other so much. I think Snow knew Grandma was fragile, and she would always gravitate towards her, almost as if she was there to guard her. And during her stay, Grandma was also able to get to know her great-grandson Robert much better. I'm so very thankful of that. Grandma had the opportunity to witness me do my own laundry for the first time. I'm happy to say I earned her seal of approval as she was mesmerized by how neat and tidy my folding skills are. Thanks to OCD. She just couldn't get over how nice everything looked and would walk around our kitchen island just looking at my work. I got such a kick out of that. Toward the end, I had the opportunity to sit one-on-one with Grandma and feed her one of her very last meals. I fixed her a single banana and fed it to her with a fork and helped her drink thickened water. It was one of the most fulfilling things I've ever experienced. It was also very tough to see my grandma fight until the very end, but I'm so very thankful she was able to do it at home, on her own terms, where she wanted to be, surrounded by family and love. She gave me security and love and safety when I was a child, beginning my life, and I'm honored and humbled to have been able to have done the same for her at the end of her life. Perhaps that was the plan all along. I'll always remember and love you, Grandma. Thank you for everything you've done for me. Until we meet again, please give those who you are now reunited with my love. Thank you all. I want to say Thank you. I want to thank everybody who came out today. All the friends, all the family, all the people from the building. It really means a lot to look out and see, you think you get to 93 years old and who's left. But look at how many people are left.
Amen.
So, thank you all. I know I've probably never seen some of you, and I haven't seen a lot of you in a long time. I haven't been to a family reunion in a long time. Please come say hi, and I'm sorry if I've forgotten your name because it's been so long. But I love all of you in this building. Thank you very much.